Hello, welcome back to another edition of Trade Talk, where we talk about all the Betfair Exchange opportunities that we can do in trading. And I welcome in Tom Haylock. Tom, it's a big weekend of footy.
It was a huge weekend of footy. Great to be here, mates. Yes, Darren out, me in the hot seat, and you hosting. It's like Crips for Josh Boostma, something like that, I reckon. Great to be here. What a big weekend of AFL it was. What was your highlight?
My highlight was, look, Carlton got away with a pretty scroungy win. You got to love the Pies at what they're doing as well.
That game was not a highlight. That was the worst game of football I've ever seen.
Can I just say that the commentators were continuously saying how good the conditions were, that it was perfect conditions. Did you have a look at the turf?
Yeah, it was the same curator as Randwick, apparently.
It was pretty close to it. I thought the conditions were absolutely horrible watching from the tally. I don't know how anyone would be able to kick straight, let alone, add the efficiency of an AFL player. But yeah, it certainly looked like it was tough going out there. So, probably putting the commentators in the lay bin. You can't be saying that they were good conditions. But did you have a highlight for the weekend?
9 goals, 20 for your mob. Pretty average. My highlight, Showdown. Unbelievable. And why isn't it on free to wear? And why is it not a standalone on a Thursday night or a Friday night? Fox Footy didn't even fly the commentators to Adelaide to call the game. They called it from a TV. So anyway, what a game.
It does make a big difference when the commentators are not in the state, because they obviously are picking up things that you can't see on the TV if players are getting injured in the background. So
I said this before, $4.5 billion TV deal, Karl, and they can't afford a couple of flights 800 kilometres down the road. The Showdown, great win by the Crows. I was really keen and most looking forward to last weekend was Bulldogs Brisbane, and how Bulldogs would turn around their form and fight back. They did. They came out and were pretty good Thursday night. Lacklustre affair. I thought Brisbane were pretty average there. Great weekend of footy.
It was an absolutely massive weekend of footy, and just a big shout out to our mate Daz, who is hopefully going to be having a baby in the next couple of days. That's why he's away. I got married. Daz is having a baby. We're all growing up here.
What am I doing?
At Betfair. What are you doing?
I think I've gone backwards.
We can have a full show on that, maybe.
There were some sick beats as well. Port Adelaide had $2,651 at under $1.20. They got rolled. Cats had over $1,000 matched at $1.20 or under as well. They got beaten there. Who would have thought the reigning premiers, bottom of the ladder, without a win after 3 rounds?
Geelong 0-3, and the Saints obviously 3-0. Something that seemed like it would be pretty high odds on the exchange for those two things to happen. But let's get stuck into the show, and as we try to do each week, let's just get a bit of a definition on trading for the new watchers this week. So Tom, what is trading?
Yeah, great question. Well, basically, the beauty of Betfair is it's a peer-to-peer betting platform. It's an exchange. So like a stock market, you can trade. You can back Geelong now at the Premiership, and they were much longer, or you could have laid them at the start of the season. They've started the year 0-3. You can back them now. So conversely, you lay them low odds and back them at high odds, and you can trade. And basically, that's the way. It's like a stock market. So as you would have seen throughout the year last season, through the last season, the odds fluctuated so much for the teams, and you can back at high points and lay at low points and make money that way. So like a stock market, it's the beauty of trading. Karl?
And it's a beautiful segue into our first segment, which is called Market Watch. And this is where we're going to look at some of the big market moves on the Betfair Exchange. And Tom, have you got any market moves that you've seen that have caught your eye?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Obviously, Melbourne a couple of weeks ago, very poor and lacklustre against Brisbane, and they drifted, but they came out and definitely showed what skill they have and what talent they have on Sunday afternoon, beating Sydney convincingly. Sydney were pretty average. Their midfield got smashed on Sunday afternoon, but Melbourne are a big firmer in the Premiership market. They were $7 into $5.50, so they firmed 1.5 points. Believe it or not, the Crows, Adelaide, were the biggest firmer, but they were ridiculous odds to start with. They were 460. They're into $110 now, so they were the biggest firmer. But a couple of drifters, Brisbane, Sydney, and Geelong, they were all pretty poor. They've drifted, and now it's Collingwood and Melbourne, pretty much level apiece at $5.50 in the overall Premiership markets. Are they the two to beat?
Yeah, I think so. I also was very caught by the Brownlow market. We've obviously got the top end moving quite a bit. Marcus Bontempelli is shortened. Clayton Oliver has shortened, and last year's winner Patrick Cripps has also shortened. I'm keen to hear about your thoughts regarding Jeremy Cameron. Obviously, it was about $130 only a matter of weeks ago. He's into $50 now. What were your thoughts on him?
You might have watched the show last week, but I wanted to be on him last week because his record against Gold Coast is actually phenomenal. And again, he kicked 3 goals. It was Geelong versus Gold Coast at one point the other day, Sunday it was. I still think his value. He's playing very well. He came 8th in the Brownlow last year. He finished on 19 votes, I believe. His record against Gold Coast was fantastic. Unfortunately, Geelong didn't win that match. If Geelong had won, he might have polled some votes there, but they didn't win, so he probably doesn't poll. And I still think he is value, and I think he'll be shorter at some point. So he's about $70 or $80 at the moment on Betfair. He will be shorter at some point. Last year, I think he got down to about $25 to $30. So you can back him now, and I just described what trading is. Back him now at the $70, lay off at 35s. You can make money that way. He doesn't need to win, which is the beauty of betting. We saw a couple of others. Luke Davies-Uniacke was the big drifter of the top 10 or so. Obviously, he didn't play. North Melbourne lost. He drifted $5, 18 out to 23 on the back of that. The biggest mover was Marcus Bontempelli, Karl, $17.50 into $10. So pre-round 3, he was $17.50. Came in at $10, a move of $7.50.
And that's interesting for punters. When is the right time to potentially trade out of Marcus Bontempelli if you don't want to stick with him and see that bet all the way through to the Brownlow Medal?
Nick Dacos is the interesting one. I don't want to skip over him. He had a big game. He had 33 possessions. He only had 365 metres gained, Karl. He clearly gets the ball, but he has a lot of possessions from full back, and he had a lot of possessions where he took the kick outs, obviously took his 10, 15 metres, had a kick and got a handball. So I don't think he had a huge impact on that match. Kaldawi was clearly the best on ground. Betfair's Brownlow Predictor's got Dacos polling 2 votes and now leading the Brownlow, which is interesting. I'm not convinced that he will poll 2. I thought there were better players on the ground.
Tommy, this is a Brownlow Predictor that has saluted 3 out of the last 4 years.
I know that, but I thought Pendlebury was fantastic as well.
Of course.
He generally polls very well. So interesting to see. But Kaldawi was also a firmer at big price. He's started the year off very well.
Well, we're going to move over to a new predictor that we've got on the Betfair Hub, and it's our new Ladder Predictor. Tom, do you want to give the punters a little bit of an insight into what the Ladder Predictor is and how it works?
Yes, it's the ultimate guide for your 2023 season, mate. It's a simulation run for each match. So basically it predicts every match for the rest of the year and formulates a percentage of winning and turns that into odds as well. So you can see, if you get the page up, AFL Ladder Predictor on the Betfair Hub, it's got Premiership odds rated price. So currently Melbourne's rated $4.10 there. You can currently back them at the $5.50, $5.40 price, which is a 6% edge, Karl. So it's got the predicted and it's got top 4 and top 8 percentages as well. So head over to the Hub. It's a great tool.
So Tom, just for the punters out there that are wanting to know how to action a bet using the Ladder Predictor, how would they be able to use the information on the screen and then place a bet?
Yeah, so you've got your first column, obviously the teams, but then after that you've got the Premiership odds rated price. So this is basically the Ladder Predictor's rated price of where they're going to go and the teams they're playing, the fixture coming up and how well they're performing. So as you can see, it's got Melbourne $4.10, the Premiership odds, Collingwood $8.12. They're currently $5.50. So that's an underlay essentially. So you could potentially lay off at $5.60. Currently rated price of $4.10. They're just the bet. You hit the blue button and you can take you to the Premiership market and you back that.
So there's a couple of interesting points on this AFL Ladder Predictor page, and one is Melbourne. They were excellent on the weekend, and the Ladder Predictor rates them at a $4.10 chance to win the AFL Premiership this year. And currently you're getting $5.40 on the Betfair Exchange. Another one is Carlton, currently rated at $17.70 according to the Ladder Predictor, but they're $8.60 on the exchange. And with their next 5 weeks, and it's something that we're going to touch on in a little bit, with their next 5 weeks, it looks like they might shorten in that Premiership market because they've got 5 very winnable games. Interesting to
see where the predictor actually shortens them off. As you said, they got a pretty easy draw. They got Geelong at the right time. I wouldn't take the $17.70 rated price off what we saw against GWS on the weekend, but we know their best is good enough. They should have finished top 8 last year, Karl. I think they're a Premiership chance. It's hard for teams to not finish in the 8 and then come and win a Premiership, so maybe that's factored in the predictor. But yeah, Collingwood's the really interesting one, $8.12 predicted price. I think Melbourne is still the team to beat. I think their best is better than anyone's in the comp.
So off that Ladder Predictor there, is there anything that you would be willing to bet into to trade potentially a little bit later?
Yeah, I think Melbourne might be the price you take now and then lay off later. So I haven't looked at their draw in coming weeks, but as I said, their best is better than anyone. They started the year so well last year and they shortened clear. I think they got down to about $2.40 last season. Take the $5.40 now, you can lay off later in the year.
Look, the other one is Geelong, and I know that they're 0-3, but they're currently $10.50 on the exchange, which, according to the Ladder Predictor, is value of 6%.
Are you taking the $10.50?
Well, the beauty about the Betfair Exchange is if I think Geelong are going to battle back and potentially get to some sort of spot. I mean, are we really going to see Geelong not play finals this year? I know that it's 3 rounds in, but they could easily still make the finals. If they're making the finals, I think they're going to be less than a $10 chance to win the Premiership.
Haven't played any games at home either.
Haven't played any games at home, and we know how stellar their record is there. So, you know, as is trading, if we can predict Geelong win some games in the next 10 weeks, I'm sure we're going to see them firm a little bit in that Premiership market. But
they've got Hawthorn Monday as well. So
they've got Hawthorn Monday. So we got to see them get that first win. And if they're winning that game, sorry, I don't want to talk out of turn, but as is, you need to predict if they're winning that game by 50 points, I'm sure they're going to firm in that market almost straight away. Great, Tommy. I'm loving the Ladder Predictor. And another segment I'm loving and was very invested watching Daz and you go over the last couple of weeks is buy, hold, and sell. Tommy, who are you buying this week?
Just before we do that, I want to go through the matches this round, Karl, because we've got some great matches coming up. Obviously, we've got Easter Monday. We just talked about Geelong Hawthorn. Geelong looks set to go in a short price favourites at $1.20. What I'm looking forward to most is Thursday, Brisbane, Collingwood. Brisbane need to bounce back. They were poor last week. Collingwood on fire. Brisbane $2.06, Collingwood $1.90. Who are you leaning to there?
Collingwood just have this anywhere, anytime mentality, and that's why they're a really entertaining team to watch.
Yeah, they're good to watch.
They're
actually
away.
A likeable team, which I don't like.
Yeah, I don't like. It's getting me offside a little bit, giving them compliments, but given their anytime, anywhere mentality, them going up to the Gabba used to be daunting, but it's almost like they thrive in that environment now. So I'm looking at the exchange odds, and I know it's early, but at $1.86, they could be value. I think they really like that dog eat dog game style. So yeah, I'm probably leaning towards Collingwood at this stage.
Their spread is better than anyone's in the comp, the way they spread from stoppages. Let's get to buy, hold, sell, Karl, because that ties in perfectly to my buy. I'm actually with Brisbane. They lost 2 games at the Gabba last season. One of those was in round 23 when it was basically irrelevant. They beat Collingwood there in round 5 last year by, I think it was 7 points. They need to bounce back. We've seen these teams be up and down. They beat Melbourne, who are now the Premiership fancies, smashed them a couple of weeks ago. So we know their best is good enough. They just need to bring it consistent level. Their midfielders need to stand up. So I'm happy to be on them, and I could back them in the Premiership market now. They're out to some crazy prices, about $10.50, $11. They could come out and be really competitive and beat Collingwood and be half that price almost. So they're my buy this week. Who's yours?
I'm looking at Jeremy Cameron. I've had something at 130.
Jumping on the bandwagon.
No, I've had something at 130, Tom. I've had something at 90, and I've had something at 80. Now into $50, and I just think there's no reason to get off the trade now. I think he's in absolutely fantastic form. The thing I like about Jeremy Cameron the most is not only that he's kicking goals, but he's getting up the ground, and he's a high touches player, and that's what umpires are looking out for. So yeah, I think with a couple of the Geelong midfielders not going so well. I mean, Guthrie's starting to come into it a little bit more, but he's that real star player on the field. A little bit less. Tom Stewart obviously injured last week, but he's $1,000 on the exchange for...
Might be the first ever $1,000 tip we've had ever.
Given his impact for Geelong, he had 29 touches and I think 10 plus marks on the weekend, and that's a 3-vote Brownlow game if they're winning. So Tom Stewart's another one that you need to keep an eye on. Who are you holding on this week, Tom?
I said at Richmond last week, I'm still holding. I'm not sure where they're at. They've had a bit of a interrupted season with a few injuries. They got the Dogs and then Sydney coming up. I'm just not sure. They could beat the Dogs, but Dogs are a bit hit and miss. They've got the talent to win. I'm not sure Richmond are going that well. 2 weeks ago against Adelaide, they played one really good quarter and that won in the match. I mean, Adelaide could have probably beaten them, had complete control of the third quarter particularly. I'm just holding. I'm not sure where they're at the moment.
One I'm holding on is Marcus Bontempelli. I was super keen and got a pretty good price pre-season. He was around that $17, $18 mark that you quoted before. Look, he's only estimated to have had 2.5 votes for any Brownlow game this year. He's currently around $10 on the exchange. I'm probably just going to hold on that. I'm looking to definitely trade out of that bet because I don't think he's going to win the Brownlow Medal. I think he's got some really tough competition. Is he over the odds? Maybe slightly, yes. So, but I'm keen to just see what he does the next couple of weeks. Hopefully he can get a couple of good games under his belt. He was absolutely incredible up to halftime on the weekend.
He was fantastic.
He was absolutely incredible, and that's the Marcus Bontempelli that we know and love. But he definitely got tagged out of the game a little bit in that second half. Someone you're selling, Tom?
Easy one for me this week, and I might be going a week early because they've got Gold Coast this week. But St Kilda, $1.88 to make the top 8. Now, this is a team last year that were 5-1 after 6 rounds, Karl. They won 4 in a row. They lost round 1, then they came out and won 4 in a row. 5-1. At round 11, they were 8-3, fourth on the ladder, and didn't look like making finals come round 23 last year. Happy to be against them again. They do this time and time again. They start the season well, and then they fall off a cliff. I know they're a different coach team. Probably a more disciplined team this year potentially, but I just think they're under the odds at $1.88. I think they'll win this week and shorten again. Then I'll be laying.
Nice one, Tom. And just a question without notice.
Also, they finished the year with Carlton, Richmond, Geelong, and Brisbane. So round 19, if they could lose those last 4 and fall off a cliff.
Yeah, that's tough for the Sainers. Do you know who has had an absolute tough year? He's been awesome. He got injured last week. And he might miss a couple of weeks. But how good's Mason Wood been? Like, what a resurrection. Similar to Liam Jones a couple of years ago. His last 2 seasons he's put together have been absolutely stunning. Obviously, Ross Lyon chucking him on the wing, and he's just got the ball on the string at the moment.
He does. Was that a question?
No, it wasn't a question. It wasn't.
He's flying. He's flying.
Let's get into some best back and lays for the week. I know it's early, but I reckon we've got a pretty good idea about how the weekend's going to go. Tom, what are you thinking in terms of this week's round or any trading opportunities?
I'm tempted to be on Brisbane just at the price, the $2.12 at the moment versus Collingwood. I just think that's a decent price for them. If they win, I want to be on Neil for the Brownlow, so I'll be watching that game very closely. This is a guy that's obviously proven vote-getter. He polls for fun. Last time they played, he had 33 and kicked 1 goal, 10 coaches' votes, 3 votes. Round 22, 2021, he had 31 and 1 goal, 3. He's had 6 Brownlow votes the last 2 times they've played. Keep an eye on him. Cripps versus North Melbourne. He had 35 and kicked 1 goal, 2, 1 goal, 2. Last time they played, 3 Brownlow votes. Watch him for the Brownlow perspective as well. Interesting stat. Adelaide lost their last 3 against Fremantle. The last 2 of those have been at home as well. So Fremantle come to Adelaide and beaten them the last 2. I think Adelaide will win that match, but Brayshaw is one from a Brownlow perspective. Slowish start of the season. He's polled 7 Brownlow votes in his last 3 times they've played Adelaide.
Yeah, interesting, Tom. We're obviously looking at Andrew Brayshaw. He had an absolutely amazing season last year and probably starting a bit slow, but it's in his nature to kick back up. For me, people are probably going to call me crazy. I keep on going back to Carlton. First, I was laying them at the start of the season, and they made me look silly. It was only for a modest return. I've got that in my pocket. Obviously, it was to lay because they had tough first-up performances against Richmond and then Geelong, but
they got both of them at good times too.
Yes, exactly, and managed to get out of those with not losing to either and coming away with a draw against Richmond. That was the hard part. Now they go into their easy run. Over the next 4 or 5 weeks, they've got North, St Kilda, West Coast and Brisbane. Some of those teams are in form, but they're currently $8.20 in the Premiership market. If they win all those games, I can definitely see them shortening to $7, $6 even.
I'll be laying them at 6.
Well, I'm keen to lay them at 6 as well, Tom, but they got to get there first. I think a good back to lay opportunities to back Carlton now at $8.20, and if they're winning all those games, they're going to shorten, and we can potentially get a good price to lay. Oh, good show, Tommy. Anything else?
As I said, my biggest play is St Kilda here for a lay perspective. I'm keen to watch that, laying in for the top 8. They won't make top 4. Have you got a lay to finish us off?
Have I got a lay? Not this week, but I love your thoughts on St Kilda. I think the 3-0 is amazing. They're very short now. What I'll be doing is keeping an eye on the Ladder Predictor and seeing where we can find value to lay, where the Ladder Predictor rates something, obviously at a price that the exchange disagrees with. I think that's just a fantastic strategy for punters to keep an eye on that.
Love it.
The season.
Love it. Beauty of trading on Betfair, mate.
Let's finish up with a question for social media. We're keen to find out what your AFL trading strategies are. So who's currently a big price that you think will shorten, and tell us why in the comments. Keen to hear from you. But that's all we've got for this week. Make sure you tune in to AFL Trade Talk next week.
Gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-858-858.
Imagine what you could be buying instead. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.